go to YouTube. All right, so we have our recording set, and so far I have SPY, QQQ, NVIDIA, GEV, VOO, VTI, Netflix, ELV, Costco, Tesla, Oracle. So let's see how many of these we can get through. If we don't touch any of the requests that you have, then we'll just come back to it in Discord. I'll still look at the charts for you. So let's share screen. All right, so you can come off mute if you have a question as we look at different charts, but can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I
Okay,
can see.
1 second. Let me clear my throat. Sorry, I've been fighting a bug for a bit and it's finally on the end. Um, so the first thing we do need to be aware of is, as I always say, what type of economic data we have. This week will be a crazy week. I think it'll be a week to really make some good profits up or down. But the market is definitely going to be waiting on PPI and CPI. So be aware that Friday and Thursday, along with the typical unemployment data, we have CPI hitting, and then Friday we follow it up with PPI. Um, you can use Chat GPT or Google and get some real good insight as to how that can influence the market. I always encourage you to know what the data means to any of the stocks that you're going to trade. So with those call outs, let's see, today is Monday. Consumer credit change will drop at 2 p.m. U.S. car prices. So maybe that can have some influence on the some of the car industry. Just take a look and see like how Tesla, Ford, all those other stocks may move from that. I'm not going to be watching any of that. I'm not really interested. I'll be more focused on tech again. But first, I do have Dollar General up real quick just to show you. I did share the chart in Discord. I do like the way they're looking. So one thing is they did break a resistance that is on the chart around 86.90. But another cool thing is that they're breaking above, let's see, some of their EMAs. So we've got a good cross up above the 12 EMA here on the weekly chart. And we also have a VWAP, anchored VWAP that I popped on here from the big sell-off in August. And so from that, we are actually reclaiming that anchored VWAP. We're getting the crossover kind of early on in February. We got a crossover from the Wolf Trend moving average. And so I like this one. I'm going to keep a watch on it. What I did like is on the daily, um, we broke out of my cloud. So with that and price being above the cloud and which I kind of had my target at 91.47 to hold a support. So if we open and hold there, I think I will go ahead and take a swing at um, Dollar General. And what I'm looking for is dates around their earnings. So I would assume, and I'll do a little bit more digging. I did share some stuff that I found just kind of using Chat GPT as a quick resource, is that yeah, the market is rotating money, so you'll be able to see what's up and down, um, and maybe where money is flowing to with questionable economy, with layoffs, with tariffs. Dollar General is definitely standing pretty solid in their moves. So a cool break would be above 95 and holding. So I'll also, let me go ahead and just set the alert now. So it'll just trigger for me if we come here, and I'm going to set an alert if we come back to test support. Ideally, as long as price is going to hold above my cloud, then I'm good. But I want to just see if we come back and test this 91.47 and if we actually hold. So you always get a break and then you look for a retest. Same for this 95, a break and the retest would give further confirmation. I grabbed 101.09 if anyone is wondering from a breaker structure. I mean, this breaker structure was from this price candle at in 2023. And we broke that structure here to the downside. in 2024. So just wanted to put that on your radar. I do like Dollar General. Someone else mentioned Walmart, so maybe I'll check that chart later and see how they're looking. So I'm moving a little fast just to make sure we can get through a few. Just let me know if you have any questions as I go through these. Let's do SPY first. SPY is pretty popular. All right, SPY. So one of the things that I do like to do is know my previous high and low, right? So for Friday, give me 1 second. This is in my way. See if I can move that and this. I'm gonna try to keep up with chat as well, just to make sure I'm not missing anyone's questions. But let's look at SPY. If you mark it for previous high and low, the low was 505.06, and I mean we've crushed that. So I'm actually a little bit surprised. I didn't know what would happen going into Monday, so I didn't even want to take a chance and swing anything. But it seems like this would have been an easy move. So 506 was our previous day low, and we are well below that. We are currently sitting in a position still where we have some buyers. Further confirmation of a downside could happen. I'm just going to scroll to the left, see if I can find. Okay, so if we start closing under 490.72, you're going to get more confirmation that we're getting additional pullback. So right now we're at 497.68. We can come as low as that 490 price I told you guys, and just watch to see what happens. I mean, if we lose that, the next drop could be all the way down to 470. There's a break of structure here. Yep, you can see it pretty clear that we could target as a support around 477.57. 477.03 would be exact. So yeah, SPY is already below their previous day low. You gotta be careful, like to see if we have any pop since we have fallen right into a area where buyers are positioned. So we could see some actual pop-ups from here. Now, is that meaning that we're getting a trend change? I mean, absolutely not. We are well below our EMAs right now. So we just need to not try to call the bottom. And you should be able to make money, in my opinion, up and down, because if we get that reaction to this daily demand zone and we don't just completely sell off and crush it, you may even get a good trade to test some resistance before we come down any lower, test support and see if we actually have some support holding for Monday. Just going to switch over real quick. 494. Let's see where they are real quick on the monthly. Okay, this looks like a good target, which is still that 479.98 area. So 479.98 seems like an interesting place that we could come and visit. Um, I'll keep an eye on that one. But yeah, so far SPY is already below previous day low. Maybe we'll come back up and test that previous day low. That could be another scenario that plays out, is that when we open, knowing that we're in a demand zone on the daily, are we in one? Yeah, we're in one for the weekly. Actually, we're close to the 200 on the weekly. So I have the 200 weighted moving average on my wolf chart, and that's pretty much positioned around 494.97. So we could actually come to that area here, and what you want to see is how we react to the 200. When was the last time we actually came back to the 200? That was in 2023. So on the weekly chart, we've been above it for quite a bit. And we're actually finally coming back to it. The question is, does price hold like it did here in 2023 and we get a nice bounce and reaction? As you can see, once we came and tested the 200 in October of 2023, we went on a very strong run all the way to where we
Rinse
reached our all-time
remix.
highs. Let's see, sorry, make sure everyone's muted. Okay, so I muted everyone. If you do have a question, just let me know. So for me, for SPY, I'll be watching to see how they react. Ideally, I'm thinking the target from what I'm seeing here is going to be this weekly 200. We're so close. Well, yeah, we're so close to hitting it that that's probably going to be my target if I'm looking at SPY. So price to react around this 494.97 area or even to come as low as 493.86. But again, we fall into a demand zone on the daily as well. So you just want to see if we get an initial pop. And what that would mean in a market where we're having a pullback is that could potentially give you an entry for puts if we're going to get more continuation to test some more support. So don't be afraid to play fair value gaps on these. So that is SPY. Any questions before I move on from SPY? Someone said Oracle, so let's Ashley said Oracle. What is Oracle doing? Wow. I had these anchored VWAPs on here and we've just been below those for a bit. So let me just do a zoom out real quick because I haven't looked at the Oracle chart. Break a structure around 127.42 and we're at 126. We should be off of the, okay, so we're losing the 12 EMA on the monthly. All right, we won't spend too much time on the monthly. Let's get a little closer to where we are. Okay, so they're kind of losing this demand zone. They're so close to falling below this demand zone that's been on my wolf chart since what? 1 August of 2024 at 125.75. So if they lose 125.75, my thoughts would be that we're coming down to test a 200 on the weekly. It's kind of interesting. That's the same scenario for a lot of stocks. They're pulling back on the weekly to their 200 weighted moving average. So I'll keep that as a watch for Oracle. What you can do is the same thing I said for SPYs. Like just keep an eye on the fact that we are under our previous day low already. What was the low of last week? Let me go back to the, yeah, well, I mean, this is the monthly. 1 second. Yeah, we're already opening under the low of last week. So I would still keep 126.95 as resistance since pre-market we're already under that. So that's the weekly low, but I still always watch that to see if price starts to come back and break above the weekly low. So far, as you can see, when we broke the weekly low for the week of March 10th, then we had a very strong pullback. So do we have that continuation this week? I would watch that price, 126.95. This price get above it. And in addition to that, just measure your high and low of your previous day. Obviously, if we ever get back up to where we're testing 133.82, we have a nice gap to fill to the upside. But with everything pulling back, I would caution calls unless you're very, you know your targets. You need to know exactly where we're going. So measure your high and your low, see if price can come back above the previous day low, which was 126.95, and just keep in mind that weekly target. Let's just get a little bit closer real quick. So yeah, we're breaking through this demand zone even on the 4 hour. That's a crazy drop if we that's a crazy drop on the 4 hour that we could see, but you want to see mainly what we do at that 200 on the weekly would be what I'm watching. So that's around 123.80. I would not be surprised if price holds under 126 95 and we come and test this. So that's something to watch. So the last time Oracle has came to this 200 weighting moving average was October 2022. So from there, we have not came back and tested it. So I think this will be the test. Let's see, we got some chats. Good morning. Let's look at, I'm sorry. So Ashley, I hope that helps you a little bit with I think it was Ashley, Oracle, to kind of get an idea. Personally, I think they may come back to this week. Can't say it'll be today, but I would eye 123.80 area. Under that, there is some support around 119.12 if we were to come fully down and maybe get some wicks in here because I think price will probably react to it. I mean, they can come as low from the weekly as 108 to 108. I would keep in mind we have a break of structure here around 117 and definitely want to see what we do at that 200 because just like SPY, um, we did pull back here in 2022, found buyers, and then we recovered. We could also come back to it and then just have initial bounce. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens there. Um, let's look at, I think I saw Nvidia on there. All right. So, well, that would be crazy, obviously, if Nvidia did come back to their 200 because that's like position right now at 76. So that's interesting. So we do have support on Nvidia around a low that we had in August. If you remember when everything did pretty strong pullback in August, their low was 90.69. So I would put that as my support targets so far for this week. You want to see what price does holding at 90.69. And so far, pre-market, we're at 92.48. That's on the weekly. On the daily, there is buyers positioned right at about 90.98. So let's see. Moving a little fast, so let me know if you have questions. I just want to give you some price targets. So about 91.07, see what price does there. And then see if support holds around 88.23. Be my first watch for NVIDIA. If we're going to pull back more, again, we could open up and we could just run right into buyers. So that's still to be determined. That's just something I would watch from where we are now. So what you do here is you measure your previous day high and low as a 1 point of target. So the low here is 92.11. So we're still actually not below the low of Friday, which we reached 92.11. So keep that in mind. Once we hit that low, my thought process is we start coming towards that 90 area. It's kind of crazy because Chris did say a long time ago, Chris saying on one of his videos, we're coming back to 90s. And so I think we're here. So just watch to see what we do once we reach these buyers here on the daily. Um, I don't have too much to cover. Obviously, again, the trend is down. Just be mindful, we'll run into buyers around here. It does not mean that we cannot sell completely through this, but you may get an initial pop once we hit that. I don't think we've tested this demand zone. We did once again in August when everything did the pullback, and we obviously came to it. And once price touched it, just look what it did. I mean, it came to it, and then we had a nice pop. And then once we reclaimed the 12 EMA here, it just continued to run. So on the daily, we've already lost the 200, obviously. So that's my thoughts on NVIDIA. Oh, well, here we go. We broke it. 92.11 was the low. And so just now we're at 91.80. So yeah, the market is just selling off. That's crazy. Meta, Tesla. Okay, we will cover Tesla. A few people asked for Tesla. I'm not going to cover too much on NVIDIA. I just want you to be mindful. We're going to hit buyers around this area, and you just want to watch. And so there's some support on the daily. Under that support, which is around 86, which I think puts us in a 200 on my weekly, if I would remember correctly. There's still some interest all the way down at 82.78. Play wisely. Don't just jump into puts and have the wrong entry. Doesn't mean that you can't recover if you had the wrong entry in this type of a pullback. But save yourself some pain and just see how we open. and make sure that we're not going to first test some resistance before we do any more of a pullback. Tesla. All right, so Tesla still hasn't, let me zoom in. Actually, hold on one second. We've come so far from any of these lines that I was charting. Take it off. All right, so we're opening under our previous week low, which was 2236, which is just kind of crazy to say about Tesla when we were all the way up there. It's not too long ago. So we're close to this trend line here. Price under that trend line on a weekly chart, I would definitely go ahead and project that we may come all the way down to like close to 203. That's to be determined. I'm not going to be overly aggressive in any bearish predictions. Our first target for Tesla probably should be around 230 and 233.09. I would watch we're already under 233.09 pre-markets, and we're under 230. Doesn't look good for Tesla. I think we have data right for cars, so that'll be another thing to be mindful of. So I would say support now where we are. If we're going to have a pullback, it's going to be around 222.28. If price does lose 228.33, that's probably the next target. It's just 220. Is it 222? Yeah, 222.28. That's from the daily, so keep in mind we could have bounces on smaller time frames, but my theory would be that we need a whole support for sure around that 228, 222.28, excuse me. Um, Measure your high and your low. We've already broken the low, obviously, of Friday, but we are positioned where we have some buyers. So a lot of stocks have pretty much pulled back to an area pre-market where there are buyers positioned here. And that's been the case since March of 2025 for Tesla. Under that 222.28, then we can come and test an area around 218. Not saying again that's going to happen Monday. I'm not even saying Monday once we open, we won't actually get some type of pop. I'm just saying keep in mind that under that level, there's some more support once we get around 218. And there's a lot of support once we get around 204. Other than that, Tesla would need to, one, if they're going to have a bounce, probably come back to 232.75 and then try to reclaim 236.18 and hold above that, which would be the previous day low, if we're going to see any type of pop. And then they still would need to take out this candle, which that's a bit of work from Friday sell-off. So I play Tesla just like this. You have to be mindful. We've run into buyers here. It does not mean they can't sell completely through this. We've seen it all of last week, but you may get some nice pops once while we're here, like a nice bounce out, maybe even to come test that low 236 and then some pullbacks. So I would just keep that in mind for Tesla. Good morning. Apple, Meta. Let me scroll back up. There were some other requests I don't want to miss. Costco, ELV, Netflix. All right, where can Costco go? Let me zoom out because I have not looked at this chart. With everything, because of how much we're pulling back, don't neglect looking at the monthly chart. For me on the monthly chart, what I'm seeing is that we're about to test the 12 BMA that I have on my chart, and that's sitting around 894. So 1 second. That's sitting around 894. So we can come as low in Costco as 881. And I would look to see from a monthly standpoint overall if we do have that pullback, if 881 holds that support. Now, obviously, Costco is well above their 200. I'm not projecting that we'll come all the way down to 713 anytime soon. There is support um, all the way through. You got fair value gaps, you got buyers pushing in at different prices. Um, they have earnings in May. So they're the same story on the weekly chart for them. They're actually hitting buyers very soon. They're going to hit buyers at about 895. So look to see what they do once they hit about 895.99, which you could just say 896 if you want to round up. And then once they hit that, they've they've came back to it in March already and had a nice little bounce, but all they did was test it at 12 and they pulled right back. So losing that would mean that price is holding under 867.34 on the weekly. From there, they can drop a lot more to probably around 853. Now, this is just a bigger picture. This is the weekly. We're going to zoom in a little bit. From the daily, I would watch price at 881.56. If we're going to just keep pulling back from the daily, I'd watch that. We've already opened up below the previous day low, which was 914.14, and we're already at 898. So I would watch overall for the day if we're going to have a continuation, what we do testing around there. So the few scenarios we can probably pop up about here, 909.59 in a bullish scenario, like if we just again get a pop from reacting to the weekly demand zone, then look to see what we do around 909, 909.59. And then if we get there and we can't break above it to come test the low of last week, then my assumption is we're pulling back to about the 881 area. So again, same story. We're already under the previous day low, uh, and we've fallen pretty close to where we have another set of buyers. So we've kind of cleared this, but we're running right into some more buyers on this chart. So keep that in mind. I'm just going to do a quick zoom into the 1 hour. Yeah, 899. What a pullback on Costco. They have earnings at the end of May, so I would keep them on watch, but they've lost a 200 on the 1 hour. Let me just look at the 4 hour. 903. So they may hit some support around 903. Then it looks like we had a change of character from this candle here at 902. 903, 902. Watch to see how we react as far as looking for support on Costco. ELV. ELV. So the price can hold here above 436.67, then you'll get that nice retest, probably as high as this candle here, which on the weekly was at 458.73. I think if they are going to continue to push up, they could potentially come to test this 200. But they have the whole price above the 12. They got the crossover from the wolf chart here in this demand zone in January. So they've already kind of did a really nice move. The next question is we're so close to this 200 on the weekly. Just as we've seen stocks that were pulling back to their 200, this one can pull up. That's another scenario. When you're looking at charts, is that this one could come to the 200, just like it did at the 12, came to the 12, tested it, did another pullback and reclaimed the 12. Same scenario could happen if price comes to this 200 on ELV. Obviously, there's a supply zone all the way here for the weekly, and this stock has earnings April 22nd. So maybe this is an earnings pop, which we tend to see sometimes. So let's just see. I'm actually going to put on Pro. Yeah, ideally, you really want price to get above 458.73 if you're bullish on this stock. On the daily, it did reclaim the 200 and is holding. So now it's just a matter of breaking probably and holding above the high of Friday, which was 458.73. If you get that break, you're going to get a nice signal, but it looks like from there, it actually sold off almost to the 200. I can't see where they are pre-market on this chart, but if they do hold, they could come as high as around 481. 481 could be a target before they hit some more resistance based on the daily. I don't follow ELV, but that would be my thoughts. They do have earnings in a few weeks, so that could be a reason for them to have a little bit of momentum to the upside. Um, let's see. Apple, Meta. Okay, we'll try to get through that. Let's look at VTI for Desiree. All right, VTI. Let's see where we are. So, again, another similar story came to the 200. We've lost the previous week low, and let me just look at the monthly real. Let's see. We're under a break of structure that I have on my chart at I'm sorry, 244. So that would be resistance 244.06. I'd watch to see if price does try to test that as a key resistance. And then what we do to hold it, because that was a break of structure. And from that break of structure, we had a nice run all the way to the top around 303. So see what we do there. Obviously, pre-market it is definitely a pullback, and we would need to see that price can reclaim and hold above 244.06. That's from the monthly, so we still can zoom in a little bit more. And again, we've just pulled back to this 200, which we have not tested. We've been far away from it for quite a bit of time since like 2023, October 2023. So we're just doing something where we come back to the 200. And now we need to see on the weekly chart if that actually will hold. If price can stay and reclaim the 200. So we can come to the 200. We can even wick all the way down to 233. But from the weekly standpoint, you want to see candles not closing under. And closing under means not even touching the 200. You start seeing that, then you probably should worry a little bit more for more pullback on VTI. Now they can come all the way down to this trend line here and test it in addition to testing the 200. So we could see a continuation all the way to this line here. Once we test this trend line that was again created all in October, the question is, do we hold and then do a pop from there? So they've cleared this demand zone so far pre-market. That's the weekly. And then for the daily, we are already out of, we've already broken the previous day low, which was from Friday at 248.18. We're clearing this daily demand zone. That's been there since February around 243.35. So the question is, will we have some buyers show up again, like some of the other scenarios, and give us some sort of pop, maybe even to test the previous day low? The drop from the daily would be close to 234.46. All scenarios say that we're bearish, but if you just want to look at it from the weekly standpoint, what I can say is to watch what we do while price battles at the 200 and potentially pulling back to test this trend line that I have. And that would probably put us somewhere around 234 that we've seen on a daily. Did we cover let's see, Apple. Someone said Apple. Let's look at Apple. Personally, I'm excited for a buying opportunity on Apple at this type of price. So we're just waiting to see where we can find support on Apple. But it looks like eventually, once things simmer down, these are all great buying opportunities. The stock market is giving us a sell from like all-time highs. Apple 176.14 area would probably be support to pay attention to. Um, and then we have some more support around 171.99. This is all the weekly. Price is already actually opening. I'm thinking we come and test at 177 if we're going to get a continuation this week. Not saying again that's going to happen today. I'm just saying that potentially 177 could be a price target. 177.64. So price has fallen on the daily into an area that buyers have been positioned in since it looks like May of 2024. And so that range that you have for this zone is high 184.20 and low 180.42. So if we do pull back some more, let's see what we do at 180.42. Under that, then you probably want to look for 174.21. Again, can't say that we'll come that low. Those would just be some key targets that I would keep my eyes on. We're well below the previous day low. So, I mean, anyone that swung puts on a lot of these stocks, congratulations, because that's another continuation from the gaps that we've already seen from Thursday to Friday. Now we have another continuation on Monday. Very interesting. I won't spend too much time on Apple. Just be mindful again that we are in a demand zone. And so those prices I would watch if we do hold price above this demand zone. And our next target could be to test a previous day low because now that's going to act as resistance. We're well below the previous week low from what we see pre-market, and that is sitting at 187.34. So still another resistance that you can keep in mind. But again, we're looking like we're opening off the 200. It's still within the cloud of the 200 from the wolf chart. And so we still have a potential target around 177. Apple is definitely reacting to the tariffs. So how low can they go? I don't know. We can only just see where we may go from the technicals. Uber. We covered Nvidia. We did Meta. Okay. If you guys have questions, you can unmute yourself and ask. Let's look at Meta, and then we'll do Uber. Pre-market, we are already out of a weekly demand zone from the pullback at, so now resistance is at 495.60 from the weekly. The previous week low was 494.20. So I would look for that first, 494.20. If we go to test resistance and then 495.60. This is all from the weekly. We're still well above the 200. And for Meta, we have not been at the 200 since May of 2023. So for Meta, there could still be a scenario, but they do have a lot of support. So I wouldn't be aggressive to say we're going to come back right now to test this. But we can test support somewhere around 442.65. We're hitting a weekly demand zone once price reaches 4. 54.17. And if we're going to do anything, we need to reclaim the previous week low first. So 494.20. Now, from the daily, again, we're kind of opening, I mean, we are opening under a demand zone. But if price can come back and break the previous day low at 494.20 and try to reclaim some or test some support, I would watch that. So your high and low for Friday was 494.20 low and 518 high. Um, it's going to be interesting to see how we do once we actually open. Like, are buyers going to jump in from there or what? If not, there's still some gaps that we can come down to. Meta hasn't been this low since September 2024, and we basically came back from all of these highs and closed a pretty big gap. Now the question is, are we going to further pull back and test some more support? So those would be the levels I will watch for Meta. Um, Ideally, you want to see them get back above 494.20 first. And from there, they can start to do some test of resistance. Um, but I would measure it there. I would start with 494.20. If we don't, then we have to look to see where we have support. And again, we haven't been here for a while. So if we did have support, it would be at so 492.39, which we're pretty close to, and potentially five 486.86. I would keep that on my watch as well because there's a fair value gap on the daily there. Excuse me one second, let me clear my throat. Yeah, so there's a fair value gap here on the daily that you can keep in mind. Yeah, so another stock, another pullback. We're not yet on the weekly at the 200, and I can't say that we'll pull back that much, but there is some more support as we do have a pullback that you can watch from the daily. Someone said, let's see, Apple we did, Root, ROOT. I haven't looked at that one, so we can check it out. And then WFC. So looking at the weekly on Roots, we are at our previous week low is 106.39, so we're pretty close to that. That needs to hold as support. If it doesn't, we can start to pull back possibly to this trend line here, which would probably put price somewhere in the 90s. But for right now, they're still technically above the previous week low, which was 106.39. They're barely holding it, but they are. And somewhere around 100 could be a possible target to the downside. Let's look at the monthly real quick. Yeah, they can pull back all the way to this 12 on the monthly at this point from where they're seated now. That could happen this week. Um, let's see. On the daily, our previous day low for root is 106.39, which is the same for the weekly, and then 116.24 is the high. Now, if we do pull back any more, again, somewhere around 100 to 99 is probably a target. Just look to see that we have support as soon as we would pull back to 90, no, actually 171 cents. If we pull back here, we're going to have that demand zone that we will enter. It's been there since February of 2025. Now, if we do pull back, because we're off the 12, my wolf chart gave us a alert here to sell off right to the 12, and then we lost the 12. So you get a continuation here. Now we're actually, as of Friday, below the trend line on the daily, and that trend line was from February as well. pretty close to where we could pull back to the 200 on the daily. So not saying that's going to be the scenario for Monday, but if you're looking at an overall picture and where we are off the 12, we have the wolf trend moving average arc since like March 27th. Things have just continued to pull back. There's a demand zone again at 101, I'm sorry, 171 cents. To get access to the wolf chart, it is on the it's on TradingView. It is a subscription-based chart system. I do have the link in my bio, so you can just message me on Discord if you have any questions on the wolf chart. So yeah, that's my scenario. I would think that we come to this demand zone if we get a continued pullback, and then from there, so price target would be about 100. And I would target that if we start to lose the 106.39 and hold under it. So yeah, we're pretty close to it. If we start to lose it and we get a confirmation from a break and retest, which you can watch from like the 5 minute, then yeah, I would think we may come to the 100 area. Their ATR on the daily is $13. So they have an aggressive move, which is based on this aggressive sell-off that's been happening since March. And so if you're using the wolf chart, you know that we would have potentially started to enter our puts somewhere here. We get the arc here on the daily, and then we get the loss of the 12. So you would have been in puts from like this high, and you're getting confirmations all the way through. Now the target is probably the 200 and this demand zone. That's what I would watch for root. Let's see. I think we did Apple. Yep. Meta. Okay. Let's do one more. We'll do two more. We'll cover WFC and WMT. Okay, so Wells Fargo, wow. I was watching them since they were above here from their last earnings in January. I have an anchored VWAP. I popped in there. I guess I can delete that for now. All right, so Wells Fargo, their previous day low was 59.71. They're technically above it. Let me just get an overall picture of what's happening with them. Okay, so there was a change of character that took place from probably this candle here, but 60.30 was a key support that I would follow from, I'm on a 3 month, but yeah, that's still a good one. 60.30. Let me go to the monthly. Okay, so here we have a fair value gap that we've fallen into. Um, let's see if price could hold overall above 50.22 from the monthly. So that's a bigger picture, right? If we're going to pull back, let's see if price can hold above 50.22. Now, so the previous week low, I'm sorry, the monthly low so far has been 59.71. That still would need to hold as support for me. So here on the weekly, we're testing the trend line that I have on my chart. We've had this trend line since August of 2024. And so from that trend line, we've had a big move to the upside for Wells Fargo. Now, if they lose that trend line and they start to close through these fair value gaps that was created as they were making their moves from earnings, my thought process is we could, from the weekly, still come back and test this 200. They have earnings. Let's see. Oh, they have earnings this week, April 11th. Okay, so Wells Fargo's has earnings this week. So keep that in mind too. Um, I don't know if they'll get some type of pop because of earnings. So far, everything is a pullback for them, but they are above, again, the weekly low of 59.71. So you can keep that as a key support. And for the previous day, yep, 59.71 is what we're watching. And we have a support line. So my wolf chart already has support lines, support and resistance built in for us. So around, let's see, around 59. we could have support. It's not a lot of support. The thicker the line on the wolf chart, then we know that that's more significant. So they can pretty much smash through the support line. But that's where your first target would be support around $59. Around $59, then around 58, 53. Under that, probably 57.13 area. But overall, Wells Fargo is pulling back like the rest of the market, and I don't really see any demand zones outside of this fair value gap on the weekly. I'll do a quick zoom in just to see on the 4 hour. Yeah, if they just smash through that fair value gap on the weekly, they can still keep coming back quite a bit. It's not a lot of buyers outside of that gap that I'm seeing. Just also again, keep in mind Wells Fargo has earnings on the 11th. So that'll be interesting to see. So last one we'll cover before we wrap up is Walmart. And at the beginning of the call, I did cover Dollar General. So when I posted to YouTube, if you missed that one, you could just replay it. I do like where Dollar General is seated. Walmart is pulling back in the 4 hour. They're in a demand zone. They have support. Let's see overall. So we've testing the 12 on the monthly, and we haven't really came back and touched the 12 since 2023. And so here we are right at it. Basically, pre-market, we're already at the 12 EMA that I have on my monthly chart. Obviously, with that, we don't want to see price start closing candles under. I'm trying to see when that ever happened. We haven't seen that since 2022 for Walmart. So we can pull back in any stock, even on the 5 minute chart. When you get those pullbacks, if you're in calls or even if you're inputs and we come back to test it or we pull back to test it in either scenario, really what you want to see, even if we touch it, even if we wick through, is if price holds above it from there. So one candle may come, it may even wick, but then we get that nice candle that holds above it. So we reclaimed it. Truly losing the 12 would be this scenario where we see price, and this is a monthly chart, we have price under and not even touching it. So in my chart system, it's red. It will turn red as we know we're losing that 12. So we'll see how Walmart does this week, but right now, from the monthly standpoint, they pulled back to the 12 EMA. On the weekly, we are already below the previous week low pre-market, which was 82.65. So 82.65, let that act as resistance. So if we do see any type of initial pop, that's what I would say to look for as resistance. I don't see a fair value gap until we come down all the way to, I guess you can say 73.34 from the weekly. So let's look at the daily because that looks pretty bad on the weekly. All right, so from the daily, look for support. We're already below the previous day low. So that's one of my measurements for what I think a stock will do. I try to look at what the previous day low and high is. So from here with Walmart, 81.22 needs to hold as support. If that doesn't happen, we'll probably come close to 81. And then from under 81, 79.85. Well, to be exact, 79.82. That could happen, guys, because I don't know. Pre-market, we'll have to see if this demand zone holds on a daily. But if Walmart starts to get under 81.22, I'm actually going to set an alert.
Can you show me where you saw the 81 support again on Walmart?
Sure. Let's see. So, where I'm pulling this, and mind you, this is the daily. Actually, I'm going to also put another level there at 81.60. And I'm going to explain that. I'm visual, guys, so I actually leave myself notes on my chart. Someone showed me that I work with, and I do like to visually see my notes. So now what I have on Walmart for anyone that's interested is I just set some alerts. If we come here to the 81.60, then um, is that my yeah, I'm gonna watch 81.60 as one support because look what price does here. Since September, even when we came here before 81.60, we pulled back. And we've tried to come back to it a few times. We get these wicks above it. I don't know if I need to call that BOS, break of structure, because it's more closer to a change of character. But when we come here to this area of 81.60, we're seeing price battle here. We're either breaking it once we had these wicks and pullbacks when we tested it, but then we come back and we hold above it. We get this nice run. Of course, this led up to their earnings, and they've been on a run since then. So where we are now, I just am following this demand zone. We have not come back to test this demand zone, which has been here since November. We tested it in November a little bit, and then we've just been on a run with Walmart, as you can see. Price has been well above. And so now with us being under 12, under the 200, under an earnings anchored VWAP I have, my thought process is to watch 81.60 and 81.22 because that is what triggered buyers. So if you didn't have anything on your chart, so we'll just take the wolf chart off for a second. What you want to train your eyes to do is just to look to see where we had buyers stepping in. And from that, we get that nice pop. So for me, you can almost visualize in this area here, right? If you didn't know anything else, in this range here, we know that we were able to pop out and buyers definitely stepped in. So if you base it even off of this candle here, there's support on Walmart. I just like it here because we pulled back when we did it here. So if you base it off of this candle, that's your demand zone. And so what you can do is say, well, I know that once buyers stepped in on the daily on in this area here, we went on a nice continuation to the upside. And you can do the reverse if you find a supply zone. So what you would do is just make your rectangle here. And you can almost build your own personal demand zone on any time frame just based on whatever candle. And you're going to see that price broke this, and that's when we had a reaction. So coming back to it, it's like we're closing a gap. And so what you want to do from here is just see that price is going to hold above it. So even if you didn't have any type of EMAs, one thing you can target is the fact that we're closing a gap on the daily, big gap. So we haven't been here for quite a bit of time so far since November. So what happens here is what you want to watch. And so I'm just going to base it off of this candle here because we did try to break and hold, but that didn't happen here in October. But when we got to this candle here in November, buyers definitely popped Walmart up if you look at the bigger picture. Good question. Where did you see 81 support? I'm getting the 81 support because what you want to do is look back on your charts. So we haven't been here for a while this low. So that's why you have to kind of zoom to the left and see what price has done here before. So when we hit this low here on this candle, from this candle here to this candle, I can see that 81.22 is probably my support level. I'm just basing it off of a candle, right? And the candle I'm choosing to base it off of is going to be this one here because this is where we get buyers from this pullback, and we haven't come back to test this low yet on the daily chart. So now my projection is if we're going to keep pulling back, we want to see this low tested 81.22, and we want to see that hold. under that, then you can start to find your other areas of support and resistance, right? Like price tend to hold around 80.56 if I'm just kind of taking a quick glance. We have these wicks here, but price never went under that. So 81.50 would be another probably support level that you can put on your chart. 80.50, excuse me, 80.51, and then so forth. So this is just me looking to see now that we've come so far down, what did we do in this area in the past? It's almost like looking to see what we've done, and if history is going to repeat itself and we pop from that 81.22. I hope that helped answer your question. Okay, so we're a little bit over time, so I am going to stop on Walmart. I will post this to my YouTube channel, and I'll leave the link in YouTube for the wolf chart as well. So let me know if you have any questions. You can just reach out to me in Discord. Thanks, everyone.